Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy podcast. Each week, we expose the faulty foundational mindsets of the past and rebuild a newer, stronger foundation essential in creating your meaningful legacy. We've got a lot of work to do, so let's get started. As much as you like this podcast, I'm certain that you're going to love the book that I just released on Amazon, Fuel Your Legacy, The 9 Pillars to Build a Meaningful Legacy. I wrote this to share with you the experiences that I had while I was identifying my identity, how I began to create my meaningful legacy, and how you can create yours. You're going to find this book on Kindle, Amazon, and as always on my website, samknickerbocker.com. Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy Show Client Edition. This is a Wednesday, or that's when we're recording this, but maybe you're listening to this on Tuesday or Thursday. It doesn't have to be on Wednesday, but this is one of the reasons I have this show is to help people expose their legacies and share with the world their greatness. And I got kind of in the habit of just inviting other people on. I thought, well, what if, because I believe all my clients are worth being remembered, what if I gave them an opportunity to expose their businesses and show why I think they're so amazing, right? Because I love sharing light with people, and I know that my clients are awesome. So I wanted to bring them up here and share that with them. So today we have Barbie McRae. Her name's Actra Barbara, but Barbie's way cuter of a name. So Barbie's the name. And if you ever meet her, she's just as bubbly and happy and all of the things that Barbie actually is, just like Barbie. And so it's a fitting name as well. I'm not sure whether we fit into our names or if our names just fit us so well as personality. But where did we first meet, Barbie?
Yeah, so we actually met at the Strengthen Your World Leadership Experience last year. You were one of the speakers.
So you got to hear me speak. I'm curious, what were your initial thoughts listening to me speak?
So when you first got up there, I was like, oh, he's spunky. And then as you went on talking about your topic and kind of introduced yourself as kind of this guy who's very straightforward, I was like, oh, is this just an excuse to be a jerk? But then you kept going and I was like, no, he's spunky and he's straightforward. He is what he says he is. And it was really great to sit and listen to you talk.
Interesting. So your first impression was, is this an excuse to be a jerk? Not an uncommon. No, that's fine. Not an uncommon first impression. I'm curious though, now that you've got to know me, we've worked together a little bit. What's been your experience now that you know me a little bit better, and what my real intentions are, you would say?
Your real intentions is you are here to help people. And you're curious and you're funny. and honestly, it just circles back to you are exactly who you say you are. And I think that's really awesome because not a lot of people are.
Well, I appreciate that. It's funny because right before we got on, started recording, she said, oh, I've never been on a serious podcast. And I was like, well, define serious. Anybody who listens to this, I don't know if there's a serious thing in my body. She says, well, I can't make any dirty jokes. I was like, Barbie, you can make any joke you want. If you want to make a dirty joke, you make a dirty joke. It's all good in the hood, okay? Like, I love humor. I'm all about humor, and it is what it is, right? There's if you think it's funny, I'll do my best to laugh, right? No guarantees that I'll
like pity laughs.
Yeah. Say my wife, so we went traveled down to Vegas, and she understands my humor, but rather than like laughing at my humor, because she thinks it's funny, but she's like, well, if you would have said it this way, it'd be even funnier. I'm like, well, could you at least laugh before you start critiquing it? No, she just goes straight for the kill. No, but really, so one of the things I love about Barbie is when you understand everything she's been through, then you're like, wow, she's extremely optimistic, happy. She's just decided that she's not going to let her past dictate her future. And that's such a unique thing in the world, especially today, where very few people have kind of mastered that. And I feel like Barbie has, and it's one of the reasons I wanted her to come on and share her story. So Barbie, go ahead and share your story from like early childhood, teenage years, up to, your first marriage, how that happened, and then where you're at today, and where you're going.
Yeah. So I grew up in Eastern Utah, and I was in this little truck stop town. I can't necessarily call it a one stoplight town because it had 6, but there was not much happening at all. The one thing that I really got into growing up was theater and acting and being on a stage. And so all through high school, I was like, I'm going to be an actress. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do the thing. And so I did actually end up going to New York for Broadway intensive training for a summer. And I realized that it wasn't what I actually wanted. It didn't like really spark anything for me. And my parents were super supportive. My community was super supportive. When I go back to my little 6 stoplight town, they still know me. And it's a little weird because it's just like, I was only in high school place, but I love them because it's such a small community and they're great. Never going to live there again, but they're great. And, about halfway through high school, I actually moved to a 1 stoplight town. And it was after I left there, I kind of realized I think I want to be a writer, because that's honestly what I'd been doing since I was like 12. Those manuscripts will never see the light of day again because I wrote them when I was 12. But I just always been writing and just creating things like that. And so then I started to self-publish my book, and I realized it was very hard. It was very hard. So you go to publishing companies and they're like, pay us $600. And me being like 18 and 19, I did not have that at all. Like, pay us $600. And I was like, I can do it myself. So I tried to do it myself, and I got my book published on Amazon, and then nothing happened because you have to market it. Fun fact, you have to market it. For that, you still need money. So I was like, okay, I'm not doing this anymore. So I actually went to school for web development. And while I was doing that, I met a guy and I got married. And at that point in my life, if you couldn't tell, I was pretty wishy-washy with where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do. I was going to write, or I was going to be an actress, or I was going to be like all these things. I had not settled on anything. And that leaked into my personal relationships, and the guy that I married ended up not being super great for me. He turned out to be emotionally and physically abusive. And he and I had a daughter together, and I didn't realize how bad things had gotten until one night we were in this 1-bedroom house with no furniture, and our daughter was sleeping in like this little bassinet that was about to fall apart. She was 2 months old. And the one thing we did have was a gigantic TV, because that is the only thing he would let us spend our money on, was electronics. Oh, and an Xbox. I'm sorry. But we were sleeping on the floor, and like we had nothing. And I realized how bad it had gotten because I was pinned against the wall, and he was this close to my face, screaming at me, telling me how terrible I was because I interrupted his video game. He was telling me how terrible of a mother I was. And in my head, I imagined our daughter at 7 years old standing in the doorway watching that. And I was like, what am I doing? And at that moment, everything just clicked for me. It was like, it isn't just you anymore. It isn't the teenage girl who wants to be on Broadway. It isn't the postgraduate lost child who wants to write some silly book. You're a mom. You have a baby. And life started a while ago, but it needs to start now. You need to get up and you need to do something. And so I started the divorce process. I ended up getting a protective order against my next husband. And through all of that, I was left with pretty much nothing. I was negative in my bank account and struggling so hard to get food on the table, to keep the roof over my head. I was facing homelessness with like a 4-month-old baby. And I remember at one point, this is a very vivid memory for me. I was fixing a bottle for her and I had her on my hip and she was screaming, crying like babies do when they're hungry. And she was kicking her little legs and she kicked the formula over. And for those who don't know, formula is very expensive when you have no money. And I remember just like breaking down. Like that was the last straw. That was it. My car had been repossessed. My landlord was threatening to evict us. And I had a job that could not sustain us. Through that job, I was able to see a therapist though. And she was great. And she asked me a ton of questions that made me think, well, why are you where you are? What are you doing to fix that? And that's when I decided that, well, I need to do more than just this job, because obviously it's not working. I need to do more than what I'm doing because obviously it is not working. As I was in the middle of a custody battle, I couldn't necessarily go find a job and leave my daughter in a better job and leave my daughter in daycare because daycare is also expensive. And B, it would, through legal things, make it seem like I'm not spending enough time with my daughter. And so I decided to start freelancing as a web developer. And so I put myself out there and my very first client reached out to me. She's like, "Hi." And I was like, great, this is fantastic. Cause I'd been like for a few weeks, just like putting myself out there, being like, look what I can do. Look what I can do. Like lowering the price just to get somebody to pay me. And we start talking and she's like, yeah, I need a website. I need this, 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 and this. And I was like, okay, let's do it. And then she was like, okay, wait, actually, I don't need a website. And I was like, okay, that's what you hired me for. And she was like, so I'm an author and I actually just need somebody to take this extra stuff that I don't want to do. I want to write. I don't want to do the marketing. I don't want to run my newsletter list. I don't want to do all these things. It's just kind of like busy work. And I was like, yeah, I'll do it. I will do that. Just pay me. Because I was in such a desperate place. And so that started, and she taught me the ropes for the indie publishing market. And I decided that I had a lot of fun not having a boss over my shoulder and just having someone hand me a list and me do that. And so I extended my services to just being a virtual assistant. And I spread myself very thin. Do you want a spreadsheet done? I'll do that. Like I was helping everybody with anything. And it turned out to be kind of like a jack of all trades, master of none type of scenario. And it wasn't working out very well. I was not keeping any clients. And I couldn't figure it out until I actually got a business coach. And he pointed out to me that I was all over the place. When people ask me, well, what do? You can't just say everything. Like that doesn't really work out, considering like everything. You're 23. You can't do everything. And so I decided to narrow it down to what I am really good at. And that is marketing and essentially any phase of publishing for indie authors. And as soon as I narrowed that, it kind of exploded to the rest of my life, if that makes any sense. Because I narrowed my focus and I was like, okay, this is what I'm doing. And then suddenly that type of thinking helped me like start getting my credit in line and getting all the adult things put together, because my focus is to build. Oh, honey, nope. Marker? Do you want the marker? Sorry. Color on the paper. I was focused in business, and so I became focused in my own life. And that's just kind of where I am now. I decided I want to run this business and I want to help other single moms, because after I really got up and running with everything, I had a very similar situation with the formula. It was the same thing. She was a bit bigger, so her kick was a bit stronger. And she's on my hip. She's kicking and screaming. She knocked the formula over. And I remember going, oh. And then I remember stopping and being like, this is just an oh crap. This is not a sit on the floor and cry for an hour. This is a pick it up, sweep it up, throw it away. And then I started crying because I'm a boob. And I realized, like, I've got my life together. I'm doing something. And as I expanded the assistant magician, I made some really wonderful friends with some wonderful women who were and are in the same situation that I was in. Good job, baby. And so then I started thinking, because I couldn't just let them like sit and be where I was. One of the women who work with me now, she's a mom of 6, a single mom of 6. And she's just like, I can't keep doing daycare. I can't. And in the beginning, she was like, I can't leave this guy who's terrible to me and terrible to my kids because I have no money. And I was like, I feel you. I've got you. And I started talking to her, and I brought her on to work with me, and I helped her get her own couple of clients. And that, to me, like, that's the spark that I had been waiting for, that I was looking for when I was being an actress, when I was being a writer. That's the spark. And I was like, I like this. I love this. And so while I'm not there yet, my goal is to work with the women's shelter here in Logan at first. I'm creating a curriculum to teach them essentially how to do what I did, because I feel like I had it pretty much as bad as you could before you really, really, truly hit rock bottom and there's no going back. Like, I feel like I got just as low as you could. And the curriculum focuses on finding out what you're good at and capitalizing on it and making a good life for you and your kids without the help of a partner. And so that's where I'm headed. And right now I'm just building a business and helping the people that I can right now.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing and getting vulnerable. For those of you who are listening and wondering what might be going on in the background, she has her daughter with her. You know, she is a full-time mom. She's able to build a business with that. And so don't get too distracted, but be aware that that's part of life. That's part of running a business. And there's always a debate on a podcast. Do you let all of that stuff happen? Do you want the cleanest audio? Do you want all that stuff? And the reality that I've chosen for my podcast, and if you don't like it, obviously you can turn it off and leave, but is that I want to talk to real people who are really doing things. And sometimes that means that they're really doing things with their family. They're really living their life. So I appreciate you, and I want to honor you for being on here, not letting outward circumstances derail you from your focus of what you're kind of trying to accomplish. But I want to talk about a few different things that you brought up. One thing is just chasing your dreams, right? We all have these dreams at a young age, and we don't put in the effort necessary to actually find out if it's if it's what our calling is, right? So we have this dream, we think, oh, that'd be nice. And so we always live on the back burner wondering, what if I actually did become an actress? What if I actually did this stuff? And that's good, I guess, to a point. But the other part of it is, what if you just went and found out that it wasn't the right road, right? Sometimes it's better to go and find out, hey, this isn't really what I want to do for the rest of my life, than to sit there wishing and hoping and dreaming that you could be there and could be doing that. So I think that's a huge, important aspect of learning and growing, is how do we actually focus ourselves on being willing to take that step, And then moving forward, right? She got back from that activity experience. I'm just thinking, okay, well, what else do I want to do? Maybe be an author. Where did that come from? I'm curious, the dream to be an author, because I know is it your mom who's an author, or is that your partner's mother?
That's actually my fiance's mom. And fun fact, she is actually the reason I wanted to be an author, because I was in 8th grade, maybe 9th grade. And I've always been just this huge fan of Dean Koontz. Like, my dad introduced me to him at a young age, and I've just been addicted ever since. I really love his writing. And so I've always idolized him. And then along comes, at that time, my best friend. His mom wrote a book, and she wanted me to be a beta reader. And that, to my like 13 and 14-year-old self, was like top tier. This is the best I'm ever going to get in high school. Like, amazing. An author wants me to read their book and give my opinion. And so that was absolutely fantastic. And so I did. I read it, and I gave her my feedback, and then she took it. And I was like, oh, authors make mistakes. Authors take ideas from other people. And then I got to meet her in person, because I'll be enough, this guy that I've been best friends with for 2 years, I'd only ever met his dad. I never met his mom. And then I got to meet her in person, and she was like, oh, it's so great being an author. And I was like, I want to be you. You are the person I want to become. And so I'd always been like kind of writing, because I feel like it was just a creative outlet. But that was when I wanted to write. And she was actually my very first client. Before my fiance and I got together, she reached out to me. She's like, I need a website. And then she did that rug ripping out from under me. And I'm still working with her, and we're growing her empire together. But she's the reason all of this has happened.
Yeah, no, I love it, because you got to always respect and honor your first, right? In any area of life. But I want to fast forward a little bit, because I think some people don't understand this, and hopefully you're willing to be vulnerable and have this conversation in honor of these people. But sometimes people are going through hard things, and from a outside perspective, it's easy to say, man, where was her family? Why did her family not want to help her? Like, how could you be so destitute? Does your family not care about you? Do you not have a family? Like, where are the people who care about you the most? Maybe it's your community. Maybe it's your church. Where were all these support systems at when you needed them most? So can you address that just a little bit? Because I think that I know that goes through many people's minds, because I've had conversations with people. And I can say that for myself, I've never been in that position outside of when I was a child, and I wasn't as conscious of the pain and the distress. But what was your experience, and how could we be more compassionate towards those experiencing what you went through, not are going through now, but what you went through?
So hitting what I want to say was near rock bottom, because I really do feel like it could have been worse. Hitting as low as I did was my fault. I didn't tell my parents or my family that I was getting a divorce until a week after the explosion happened at my house. Because the night that I told him I want a divorce, we didn't have a lot of furniture, but we almost got a lot of holes in the wall. Like, it got very violent and very explosive. And I didn't tell anyone, because part of it, I think, comes from the abuse that I went through during my marriage. I had to be perfect. Nothing could be out of place. I had to provide. I worked all through my pregnancy and went right back to work almost immediately after giving birth. And that was very hard, because I actually did almost die during delivery. My body wasn't ready. And then growing up, I sought out sought out approval from my peers a lot because I got a big family and my parents weren't perfect. And so part of that pride, why I got so low, is because I didn't ask for help and I didn't tell anybody what was going on because I had to be perfect. I couldn't fail at being a mom. I couldn't tell people that I wasn't okay. I couldn't tell people that I didn't sleep because I was crying. I couldn't tell my boss the reason why I'm not at work right now is because I have an upset stomach from being so distressed over my situation. I couldn't tell people any of that. And then my brother, he came up and he was like, Barbie, what is going on? And then it was really just one of those, like, the dam broke moments. And I just pretty much lost it. And I was like, Glenn, I'm not okay. Glenn, I really, really messed up. Everything you guys said about my ex-husband was true. Everything you said, everything you were warning me about was true. Which was also why I couldn't tell people, because then they were right. And I was so very wrong. And even at that point, I asked him, I was like, please don't tell mom and dad. And the very next day, my parents drove up because I had moved 4+ hours away. The very next day, my dad called into work and my mom skipped a therapy session and my little sister skipped school, and they all came up and they were like, why didn't you tell us? And I had to repeat all those reasons again. And I was like, because I can do it myself. And they were like, Barbie, you don't need to. We are here. And so my mom is actually the reason I got a protective order. She essentially frog walked me into the courthouse to get the papers done. So the help that was there, like it was there the whole time, but I was too prideful to even reach out. I started receiving help from the church. I got signed up for food stamps, and that's what carried me while I built what I have now.
Thank you so much for choosing to be vulnerable and share that. I'm confident that that's not a unique situation. A lot of us feel that way. It may be physical circumstances, maybe emotional circumstances, maybe different levels of addiction that we're too scared to share with the people around us to get the support and the help that we need. It doesn't, like, what that looks like in each of your lives who's listening to this, it may be different. It may not be a violent situation, but I think the overarching thing, and it could just be postpartum depression. It could be needing somebody to help you clean your house because it's overwhelming and you don't know how to, nobody ever taught you how to keep a clean house, right? It can be the smallest thing, and you just don't know. And so please hear Barbie's story and really internalize it and say, where in my life am I refusing to ask for help? Not because the help isn't there, but where in my life am I refusing to ask for help? And I think that's a very powerful question that we can all ask, and it doesn't matter who you are. I mean, it's fascinating. There's a new app called Clubhouse. Love it. It's party every day. But one of the things that I find fascinating about it, I was on a call or on in one of the rooms yesterday, and it was basically a bunch of multimillionaires and billionaires who were having other business owners pitch them their business, a lot like Shark Tank. And what I found fascinating was there were some people who would come on there, and I mean, one of the guys that pitched their business, but then they were unwilling to ask for help. One of the guys, they had the former CEO of T-Mobile, another guy. So there's two centimillionaires, so people who were making 9 figures or more. They all wanted to help this guy fix his company and turn it around and take it internet, like blow this company up and make this guy extremely wealthy. They all saw the vision. They were all into it. And he was only the person presenting his company was only a 50% partner, and his brother was the other partner. And he was unwilling to call his brother and have a conversation about that opportunity. And it's just so indicative of our lives. We get this pride, we get this idea that we need to do it on our own. It's not the same if we hire an expert and bring in an expert to fix our marriage. If we hire an expert to fix our weight problem or our eating habits, for either side, right? Maybe you're deathly skinny because you don't eat. Maybe you're overweight because you overeat. Like, it doesn't matter, but we're ashamed of hiring these experts, especially for men. Men find it, I don't know, demasculating to say, yeah, I go to therapy. got somebody helping me work on my marriage, whatever it is. So what if you were to drop those pretenses, drop your ego, drop your pride, and actually reach out for the help that you need, and be willing to put in the work necessary? Because none of those things, and that'll be the next question here, but I'm curious, it's great to get help from people, but what were the expectations? If I'm going to extend this help, what did you need to do? What type of things did you need to demonstrate that you're actually trying to improve and not just live off of the help? I'm curious there.
Yeah. So the rent situation was solved by church leaders. They share your favorite songs on. Mm-hmm. The rent problem was solved by church leadership. And at that point, I had moved very far away from being religious at all because of certain expectations of my ex-husband. And being religious was something that he honestly just wouldn't allow me to do. And so the bishop showed up at my house, and we had the conversation, and he was like, okay, well, I can definitely help you. You really do need help. The only thing I'm going to ask is that spiritually, in whatever way, you come closer to God, whatever way, whatever is good for you. You don't have to come to church. You don't have to take the sacrament or do anything. You don't have to do any of that, but take care of your spiritual health. And I honestly really, really admire him for that, because during my first marriage, there were some bishops that had what would have been at that point in my life very hard things for me to do. I'd have to get up and I'd have to go to church. And for people who have had depression, people who do have depression, at that point in my life, getting out of bed was not an option sometimes. Like, it just wasn't going to work. All he asked was that I take care of myself. My parents had just a little bit harder restrictions. One, he was not allowed back in the house. My ex-husband was not allowed to come back into my house. Two, I had to come visit them more often because I'd actually been estranged from them for a few years because my husband wouldn't let me see them. And which is also part of why I didn't tell them, because there was a little bit of guilt there. And beyond that, the overall message was for me to get better. However I needed to do it, I needed to get better. That's really all anyone asked of me.
Yeah, and I think that's really what people want. They want the best for you. And yeah, I can't stress enough, for those of you who are listening, who are going through either similar experiences or experiences that you could superimpose on. They may not be as dramatic, quote unquote, but from my experience, it doesn't matter how big the problem is. We all feel like our problem is the biggest. We all feel like our situation's different. We don't have as much bravery, courage. We don't have any of that. And my experience is everybody's problems are their own, and they all feel like the biggest, and the people around you want to help you. They want to. It's not like oh, well, I'm only going to help if they ask. They want to help. They just don't. I know for me in my childhood, all of us kids, we were good, or at least we believed we were good at lying through our teeth. And if somebody asked, "Hey, how are you doing?" Put this giant smile on your face. "Oh, I'm doing great. Everything's fantastic," right? Meanwhile, you're getting beat back at home. Like you become so good at putting on this second face because it's survival. The idea that you might share your feelings, your thoughts, that what's actually going on, there's an actual physical potential risk to you exposing that, right? For me in my childhood, I think if everybody in my childhood and my siblings, we were completely honest about what was going on, we probably would have been taken from our parents by Child Protective Services, and we wouldn't be all in one family right now. I mean, that's the real risk of being completely open and honest sometimes. And I can speak. I mean, the contrast is I'm super grateful we all were such good liars, because now, 20 years in the future, our family is loving. We are all happy. We all forgiven each other as far as I'm aware. Our parents are fantastic. They love each other. They love us. We love them. Like everything through time was healed. But during the time, I think it could have gone a very different direction had things been found out. So I'm trying to give contrast, right? There's people that, and you know who they are, that you can trust to get the help that you need. And sometimes the protective orders, the divorces, sometimes that is the best solution. And just waiting it out is not the best solution. So I don't know. I'm not a therapist. I don't know your individual circumstance. So don't say, "Well, Sam said to do this with my life." I'm not saying that at all. But I would just be real intentional and find somebody that you can trust, that you can share with. And in my experience, people want to help. That's all I can say there. And we're going to move past that into what you do now, because I think this is, although it is separate, it's also very, very, very much applicable. The idea of a virtual assistant, people think, "Oh, that's just for somebody who has a business. That's just for somebody else. It's not for me. I can run my business by myself." So share with us, like, what are some just average everyday things that a virtual assistant could take off somebody's plate? Maybe that you're not just a stay-at-home mom, by the way. You're a stay-at-home mom, which is like you're a freaking gladiator hero. But so you're a stay-at-home mom, stay-at-home dad, you're taking care of the household, and you get overwhelmed with certain tasks. What areas could a virtual assistant help that individual?
Honestly, calling and making appointments. Because that's something that when I was helping everybody and everything, that's something that a lot of people wanted. Some people just either don't have time or don't want to call the doctor's office and get through the "please press 2" and "please press 1" for doctor, and like just listening to all of those lists. That's one, especially if you have so many children. And then budgeting. I made a budget sheet that I kind of used as a template. These people who were like, "I have no idea where this is going." And I'd be like, "Well, here's a handy dandy Excel spreadsheet. Why don't you put things in it?" And then she wants me to draw an elephant. Starfish. There you go, babe. And then they would ask me to kind of manage it and watch it for them, because they would say, "I have $200 for groceries. Don't let me go over that." And so part of being a virtual assistant, sweetheart, do you want to draw it? I'm sorry, we may need to pause for just a second.
Has helped you or had you budget for them.
Right. So they would give me kind of this allotment of, well, this is how I want to spend this chunk of money, and this chunk of money, don't let me go over that. And so essentially monitoring their finances for them. So there is a certain level of trust that comes into getting a virtual assistant for really personal things in your life like that. But it really spans all the way across whatever you don't want to do that you can do online or over the phone is something you can get a virtual assistant for.
Yeah, I think that's crucial, because it's so that's the family side, family organization side. But then there's the business side, that a virtual assistant, you could hire somebody to sit there all day, and you only really need them for 2 hours a day, 2 or 3 hours a day, but you don't know what those 2 or 3 hours are. And so you just have to have them there all day. But you could have a virtual assistant take care of a lot of those, field your calls, only put through the people who are important to put through, answer emails. You can have them do a lot of that stuff that it's busy work for you. You could have a virtual assistant do most of that stuff and only pay for the hours they're actually working, rather than paying for, 8 hours a day when they're sitting there playing Facebook for 6 hours of the day,
Mm-hmm.
or on Clubhouse if you're like me. So, so that's there. And then the other side of your business, or the other side of how you help people, is if somebody's wanting to become a virtual assistant or wanting to be able to express or market their skills. Talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So I have started, it's still a little bit in the works. It's still a little bit rocky. My onboarding process for the people that I work with, but we're getting there, getting better every day. But normally what I do is when I find someone or someone reaches out to me and they're like, hey, I want to do what you do, I train them on what I know first and foremost. Okay, you can work under me and do social media for this author. Here's the outline, here's the this. And then while I'm working with them, I lay out the rest of it. I say, okay, when you're a virtual assistant, you need to block out you need to block out time to do things, but you can do those things at your kid's soccer game, or you can do these things at your mom and dad's house while they're watching the kids. And I walk them through my experience of figuring out what works for me so that I can do the work, while teaching them how to do indie publishing, indie marketing. And once they have their own groove, I ask them, okay, what are you good at by yourself? And the first woman that I worked with, the single mom of 6 kids, she's really good at like product descriptions. And so her clients come to her when they have an Etsy store or some kind of online shop, and they're just like, I have no idea how to write a product description. That sounds fun. And like gets people to look at it and be like, I want this mug instead of this mug, And so she's just really good with words that way. And so from there, I took the strategy of how I get my clients and I applied it to her. And so she's got 2 of her very own clients that keep coming back because they love what she does because she's so good at it. And she's like, I didn't think this would help anybody. I didn't think this could apply to anything. And so that's kind of what I do. I take them under my wing and I make sure that they've got a foundation of working as a virtual assistant where I can watch them closely and then kind of set them free.
Yeah. No, I love it. I think that's so valuable from a perspective of training and becoming. So there's expert training going on. They're helping you become like them or like Barbie. And then she's saying, okay, well, how can you go do your own thing and become self-sustaining? So that's fantastic. Where would somebody go if they're interested in either having you work with them as a virtual assistant, like working for them, or maybe they want to become a virtual assistant themselves? Where would they go to contact you?
So you can go 2 places. My website is theassistantmagician.com. And that one is more geared if you would like to work with me and hire me as an assistant. But my Facebook page is at The Assistant Magician on Facebook. There I hit both sides of it. So if people reach out to me via the Facebook page, say, hey, I want to be a virtual assistant, that'd be the best place for them to go.
Awesome. Cool. Well, this is a legacy on rapid fire. So one of my favorite sections of the podcast, 5 questions, 1-word answers, 1-word to 1-sentence answers. You ready to go?
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. You'll do great. What do you believe is holding you back from reaching the next level of your legacy today?
Fear of success.
Okay. Hey, that's huge. what is your greatest failure or greatest failure to this point in your life?
Like the all-encompassing?
Yep. To this point in your life, what would you say that greatest failure has been?
My first marriage.
Okay. Hey, perfect. And what's your greatest success?
My parenting, improving on what my parents had and overcoming what my ex did to me.
Perfect. What's like one secret habit, mindset, or behavior that you believe contributes most to your success right now?
It's okay to take care of you first.
True that. What is one or two books you think that we could all benefit from as a fuel your legacy audience?
So I mostly read fiction and I learn best through metaphor. So for mindset, I would recommend any of the Jane Hawk books by Dean Koontz, because I admire, if you model your life through that, that's great. And on a business perspective, The Newsletter Ninja by Rebecca, I have it here. The Newsletter Ninja, it talks about how to market yourself and how to do email marketing, which I've come to find is incredibly important. It's as far as being a business owner, marketing via email is pretty important.
Yeah. I get a lot of them every day, so I ignore most of them, but they do get me about one every 100 emails. So it's still effective. And I don't unsubscribe because I don't want to miss something. So FOMO's real. So I love that. Okay. So this is a final question. Honestly, my favorite question. And this is about your legacy and what legacy you're building. So we're going to pretend that you've died and that you're able to come back and view your great-great-great-great-grandchildren sitting around a table discussing the impact you had and the life that you lived. What do you want them to be saying about your legacy 6 generations from now?
That I was a big advocate for, not just an advocate, but someone who actually committed action, who did something about domestic violence and shelters and rehabilitating the abuse victims, and also someone who has been super loud about mental health, because that's the big goal for everything here. Like I want to build a company. I want to do all these things, but with that company, I want to make a change with some of the stuff that's going on in society.
Awesome. And I believe that you're well on your way from what I've known you over the last almost a year. I think that's exactly where you're headed. And I'm grateful for your willingness to come and share on this show and be vulnerable about kind of your experiences and where you see yourself going. So thank you so much, Barbie. Remember, for all those people in the audience, I believe that you're worth being remembered. And it's my mission to help you be remembered for that. For what it is that you believe you're worth being remembered for. So if you would like to comment or follow this podcast, subscribe to it, and then you can also go in Apple or whatever device you're listening on and leave a review. That'd be fantastic. We'd always appreciate it. If you got value out of it, also share it on social media with those around you. If you tag me in your posts, then I will also pass that share along on my Instagram and Facebook profiles and help other people see who you are and hear your story. So thank you so much. And we'll catch you guys next time on the Fuel Your Legacy Show. Thanks for joining us. If what you heard today resonates with you, please like, comment, and share on social media. Tag me. And if you do give me a shout out, I'll give you a shout out on the next episode. Thanks to all of those who've left a review. It helps spread the message of what it takes to build a legacy that lasts. And we'll catch you next time on Fuel Your Legacy.